All right, let's talk about something huge that's changing the game for pretty much everyone who invests. I'm talking about AI. It's basically becoming this new copilot for your finances. But the big question is, where is it actually steering us?
Okay, let's just jump right into the deep end with this quote because, wow, it is a big one. This really gets to the core of what everyone hopes AI can do for finance, right? The idea that it's not just helping us out, but it's seeing things that are literally invisible to the human eye, sifting through mountains of data to find that one golden opportunity.
And that, right there, leads us to the big question we're going to unpack today. Is this incredible technology actually leveling the playing field for all of us? Or is it just creating a new kind of gap between the pros and everyone else?
So, to even begin to answer that, we've got to get our hands dirty. The promise is great, but what are people actually using? What do these tools look like? Let's pop the hood on this thing and check out the AI investing toolbox.
You know, the easiest way to think about this stuff is to break it down into two main types. First, you've got your information scouts. Think of them like digital detectives. Their whole job is speed, being your eyes and ears, catching important news the instant it breaks. Then you've got your AI stock pickers. And these guys, well, they take it a step further. They don't just find the info, they actually analyze it and say, hey, maybe you should look at this. Okay, let's zoom in on those scouts first. With these tools, the name of the game is one thing: getting an information edge. And in the world of investing, where literally seconds can make a difference, knowing something even a few minutes ahead of the crowd, that can be a massive, massive advantage. So let's look at a couple of real-world examples of these scouts. Take a tool like Visual Ping. You can tell it to watch a specific web page, like, say, the investor page for a company you're interested in. Instead of you having to mash the refresh button all day, the AI pings you the second something changes and even gives you a summary of what's new. Super useful. Then you've got something like Data Miner, which is playing on a way bigger field. It's scanning everything: news, social media, you name it, looking for signals of big events just as they're starting to bubble up. So imagine you own stock in a company, and you get an alert about a fire at one of their key suppliers, like minutes before it hits the mainstream news. That's the kind of edge we're talking about.
All right, so that's the scouts. Now let's switch gears and talk about the other category, the AI stock pickers. These are the tools that get a little more ambitious. They're trying to help you answer that million-dollar question. So, what should I actually buy? They're not just finding info, they're creating actual investment ideas.
And what's really interesting here is how different these tools can be. On one hand, you have something like Zen Investor. It uses what's called a human-in-the-loop approach. The AI does all the heavy lifting, crunching numbers on hundreds of factors, but the final call is still guided by a human expert with decades of experience. It's kind of the best of both worlds. But then, on the complete other end, you've got a tool like Trade Ideas. This is pure AI. Its system, nicknamed Holly, is built for active traders. It runs millions of simulations every single night to find tiny statistical advantages for the next trading day. Two very different ways to tackle the same problem. Okay, so we've seen the tech, we know what the tools can do, but, that's really only half the story, isn't it? The real question is, how are everyday people, real investors, actually using this stuff? Or are they? Well, for that, we're going to dive into this really fascinating study from the Miami Herbert Business School. They talked to over 2,000 retail investors to find out. And the very first number they found is kind of staggering. Almost half, 47% of the investors they talked to have already used AI for investing. Let that sink in. This isn't some far-off future trend we're talking about. It is happening right now and it's widespread. But, okay, used it can mean a lot of things. How often are they really using it? And this chart tells a really interesting story. You can see a huge chunk of people, 41%, are just rarely using it. They're kicking the tires, seeing what it's all about. But look at the other side of that coin. You've got nearly a third of users who are in there weekly or even daily. For them, AI is already part of their investing routine. So, why are they trying it out? What's the big appeal? Well, it's pretty clear. Investors feel like they're drinking from a fire hose of information every single day. They see AI as this amazing tool that can help them process all that stuff way faster, make sense of complex ideas, and just, cut through all the noise to find what actually matters. But, and this is a big but, it's not all sunshine and roses. For every cool benefit, there's a pretty serious worry attached. And the biggest one is trust. Over half of the people using these tools are worried about whether the answers they get are even accurate or reliable. And right behind that, data privacy. It's this constant tug of war, this tension, that really captures where we are with AI and our money right now. And as we dig a little deeper into this study, we find what might be the single most important takeaway. Because it's not just if people are using AI that matters, it's how they're using it. And it looks like a huge gap is starting to form. The researchers call it the sophistication gap. Here's the basic idea. A beginner investor might ask an AI, hey, what's a PE ratio? But a more experienced investor, they're using it to do way more complicated stuff, like deep dive analysis. And that could actually be making the gap between them even wider than it was before. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. Look at the difference. This study found that the really experienced investors are way more likely to use AI for the heavy lifting. We're talking about complex tasks like analyzing the sentiment of news reports, comparing different companies head-to-head on obscure metrics, or even having the AI digest an entire hour-long earnings call transcript for them. They're not just using the tool, they're pushing it to its absolute limits.
Okay, so let's zoom out and put all the pieces together. On one hand, you have these unbelievably powerful tools that promise to level the playing field for everyone. But on the other hand, you have real-world data showing that people are using them in very, very different ways. So, what does this all mean for the future of investing?
I think the big takeaway here is that AI isn't just a slightly better calculator or a faster search engine. It's a fundamental shift in the entire landscape. It gives us this incredible, almost superhuman ability to process information. But, and this is the key, that power isn't being spread around equally. This sophistication gap shows us that your experience and your knowledge still matter. In fact, they might matter now more than ever.
And all of this leaves us with one final big question to chew on. As AI becomes this essential copilot on our investment journey, who's actually flying the plane? Who's really in the driver's seat making the final calls? Is it you? Is it the machine? And ultimately, who really benefits the most from that new partnership? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.